Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 favorite tips for Sett. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better Sett player and to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. I'm releasing this right as Sett goes live on the live server, so I know that there are going to be a lot of people that are first time in Sett and ranked, and I just want to give them a little bit more knowledge so they aren't feeding the games as hard. Alright, so I have timestamps all throughout my videos. You can skip this intro, you can skip a certain tip if you already understand the concept of it, as well as if you guys have any questions for me, you can contact me directly in the pinned comments down below. There will be a link to my Discord, as well as you can hit the notification button and subscribe to my channel, and you will be notified when I go live on stream, and you can ask me any questions there. Finally, if you want to add your own tips, I'd love to see that down in the comments down below. If you want to help out people that are going to come to the video, it's always really greatly appreciated. And with that out of the way, let's get into the first tip. Alright, and getting into tip number 1, I want to talk about the ult and the kind of the parameters around it and how you want to look to understand it. So first of all, I want to go over just the different status effects that occur on you and your target. So when you ultimate, you are really the same as a Malphite in the way that you're unstoppable in the animation of it. So you're not like a Kaisa that can get stunned out of her R dash or hooked out of her R dash. You are a Malphite and you are able to dodge abilities and use this in a defensive manner. If you see something like a Fizz ult or a Zed ult coming in, you can look to go unstoppable and get away from a lot of damage by using your ult. So make sure you have a good understanding about that. Second, when you do ult the enemy, they are suppressed. As you can see, this little bar that goes under them, that means that it can be QSS'd, and it is going to be a pain if people start getting that against you. So understanding those status effects are going to be extremely important. Alright, next up with the ultimate and how you want to start looking at it is this ultimate is a premier ultimate for frontline champions, as this goes extremely well with this kit. How you want to be looking to play it out is by grabbing one of the enemy frontliners and smashing it into a bunch of backliners and getting off your combos. So make sure that when you are grabbing this showstopper and you are doing it, that you can really cause a lot of discord among the enemy champions with a perfectly timed ult into a good location in which you're able to get a lot of people into a really poor situation. Also, with the ultimate, it has a scaling of enemy's bonus HP, so it's going to do extra damage to tanks and it's going to slow that person a lot. Maybe they don't have a front line. Maybe it's a classic solo queue where their tankiest member in the front is a Kha'Zix from the jungle or a Kayle from the top lane. You want to start using this on champions that are looking to kite out, because with this 99% slow for 1.5 seconds is one of the strongest slows in the game, and people are really going to struggle to kite after that. So there are a couple different ways to look to use your ultimate. First, by picking off a really important target and getting a good slow on him, or second, just ulting a front line into the back line, getting a good amount of damage and setting up a really strong face breaker. And that will wrap up tip number 1 for Sett. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, I want to talk about something that's extremely important for champions that do not have a resource that is required to use abilities, and that is the importance of cooldown reduction. With this build, I'm not maxed out CDR, but you should always be looking to have a maxed out CDR percentage when you are playing champions that you can get down to 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 48 seconds. This means you might even be able to get off a second ultimate in a prolonged team fight. So make sure that you are really taking full advantage of his kit and his he doesn't have a reliance on mana or energy or anything like that. He is just strictly cooldown, so you want to look at his cooldowns like Riven, and you want to look at his building, how he builds like Riven as well, because you are going to be able to get off quite a few rounds of your abilities in fights and in engages and skirmishes because of his he has no resources. This is just such a really strong aspect of any champion that has 0 resources, so make sure that you are capping your CDR. The second thing I want to talk about with itemization is how your Haymaker works, and that is Sett stores 100% of damage taken as crit as a cap of 2066, 50% of Sett's base health. So or Sett's max health. So how you want to be looking to build Sett, unless you're just a really strong player and you're better than the average player and you can just do a hyper aggressive and carry that way. If you are just finding yourself going even in lane or maybe winning a little bit or maybe losing a little bit, the optimal build for Sett is going to be a high HP percentage build, because it is going to give him an extremely strong W damage that is going to come out, because it comes from a percentage of grit. This is going to be both an offensive, it's going to turn your HP into an offensive pool of damage, as well as giving you a bigger shield depending on how much grit you have. So you are able to increase your shields and the amount of damage you do by the higher HP percentages you have. So getting runes and items that really give you a lot of HP are going to be quite beneficial when you are playing Sett. There are a couple different ways to build him. You can go a little bit of a bruiser, you can go a little bit more of a hyper damage, or maybe a duelist or a split push, but as you're starting out, as this video is being released right at the beginning of his release on the live service, I would recommend a heavy HP build and be a little bit bruisery. And that will wrap up tip number 2. Alright, and getting into the next tip, I want to talk about where Sett can really shine and get a lot of damage done, and I feel like he is going to be able to scale extremely well in these matchups and can be a great pocket pick against these particular champions, and that is playing against tanks. Now, first of all, he has health regeneration, so he is going to have a bit of sustain in lane. He is also going to have 8.4% of target's max HP based off the attack damage that I have currently, so he is going to be doing extremely well into people that build a lot of HP, so tanks. And next up, he is going to have a shield where he is going to be able to shield off ability-based damage burst a lot of the time. If you aren't aware, consistent damage is really good against shields, because it doesn't really matter if they shield off a little bit of it, because you're just going to be doing the same amount of damage over and over again. But if it is a champion like a Maokai that is looking to run up you and do his QWE combo, you can shield that off, and then he just has auto attacks on you afterwards. So Haymaker is going to be great, as well as giving you true damage against tanks, so his Haymaker is really strong against tanks. Finally, the Showstopper is going to be extremely good against tanks as well, because it's going to give 60% of the grabbed enemy's bonus health. So it's going to be stronger against enemies that stack a lot of health, and really just provide a way to shred tanks is just going to be so great for Sett. So if you see an enemy pick a tank, you can pick up Sett and you will do pretty well in the matchup, in most of the matchups in my opinion. If you have any questions about matchups, you can hit me up in the comments down below. Alright, I want to cover the E a little bit and how it is worded. As I am releasing this right as the Sett is getting released on live, I just want to give you guys something that is a little bit simple, but is going to be extremely important moving forward. And that is when it is worded as enemies. As it says right here, if Sett grabbed at least one enemy on each side, all enemies are stunned for 1 second. So this could be a minion, this could be a monster, or it can be an enemy champion, and it will proc the stun when you are using the E. As you see here, it is just going to be a great way to get a bit of an AoE stun. So again, with Sett and with his E, he is going to be extremely strong in certain situations where there are a lot of melee champions. So he's going to be a great counter to a melee heavy dive comp that everyone just wants to pile on one champion and take them down, and then move to the next and move to the next and move to the next. He is going to provide a lot of CC on those champions, because he is going to be able to knock them all together. Next up, when you are using Facebreaker, there is going to be a particular thing that is going to be extremely strong, and he is going to have a great synergy with, if you haven't guessed it yet, it is Yasuo, and how he is able to knock people airborne when they are when you do not get a stun on them. So if you have just a bunch of enemies like this and you flash in an E, you can get a huge knockup for your Yasuo. So keep this in mind when you are playing him, and you will be able to get a really good setup for your team with the Facebreaker. Just make sure that you aren't accidentally proccing the stun when you are looking for a knockup for your Yasuo. Now, another really strong thing with this is that it is on a really short cooldown for being an AoE stun. If you didn't know, AoE stuns usually have a little bit longer than single target stuns, or anything that is like that of the sort. So make sure that when you are using this, is you do not have to make it perfect in every single situation. because it's a rather short cooldown, you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 of these off in a team fight, maybe even more depending on the enemy champions and your champions and how tanky they are. And those are my tips for Sett. Alright, and getting into the final tip, I just want to cover runes really quickly. Conquer can be great against champions that you're going to be taking long extended fights against. Things like press the attack can be pretty decent because you're able to proc it pretty quickly with your passive, but you only want to be taking it into champions that give you a very small window of damage. For example, Quinn, Teemo up in the top lane, or champions that are constantly going to be looking to kite you out and not allowing you to have that fully stacked Conqueror in those long situations of fighting them. Next up, a thing like Grasp I think is the go-to rune when you are first learning Sett, as it is an offensive and a defensive tool, which is great, as well as giving you more grit, as it gives you a lot of HP and it gives you just more overall damage, and it is good. I think the optimal rune for playing into tanks that you feel like you might struggle a little bit against in the different fights. And finally, there are other runes that I think are going to be, that can work on Sett, maybe something like a phase rush against people that are trying to really kite you out really heavily, and then maybe something like an aftershock if you want a true tank, but I think those aren't as optimal as the first ones I covered. Next up, this small thing that I really wanted to cover that I think is really important when you are playing Sett, and that is his ability to just nope out of a different situation by using the terrain to his advantage. If you didn't know, the showstopper can take you over the walls, but you have to be really careful. I'll give you an example. If maybe 3 or 4 people collapse on you on the wall here, you want to isolate one, you take them over here, and you just beat the crap out of them in a 1v1. But be extremely careful with this ability, as if he is too far away from the wall and you try and ultimate, it will short hop it, doing a couple of things that are going to really hinder you. That's going to be less suppression time, that's going to be less unstoppable time, and it is going to be detrimental to you as a whole. So make sure that you are using your ultimate over the wall. You want to think of it a little bit about a flash. You don't want to short the flash a little bit too much and just smash into the wall. You want to use it as another way to get away, like your flash. So make sure that you aren't short-handing the flash. If you have any questions about any of these tips, more than happy to help you out. You guys can hit me up in the comments down below, or you can join the Discord, or come to one of my streams on YouTube and you can ask me there. That'll wrap up my video. As always, guys, take it easy.